I'm a 34-year-old woman named Talia, and I've been divorced from my ex-husband Damien for 4 years. We have twin daughters, Aria and Kenzie. They're 9 now. We had a 50-50 custody agreement, a legal and physical. No primary parent. Everything was supposed to be even. That was the agreement when we sat in front of the judge. That was what Damien promised in court and in front of our girls. And for the first few months after the divorce, he stuck to it. Then he met Alora. He married her 6 months later. She had this polished, put-together vibe. Her background was in public relations, and she used to work for a lifestyle magazine. She was beautiful in a way that looked permanent, like every strand of hair had its designated place. She immediately started this blog about modern family dynamics and curated an Instagram page for their life. Family brunches, parenting tips, co-parenting posts. Everything had this glowing filter over it. A neat little story of how love fixed everything. I didn't care. Not at first. I wasn't following their account, and the girls were adjusting all right. Until one afternoon, Aria came home with a craft project from school. It was a family tree. My name was missing. She said she wasn't allowed to include me on the family page because I wasn't in their house. When I asked what that meant, she shrugged and said Alora said I didn't want to be involved anymore. That was the start. Damien started skipping updates, school announcements, doctor appointments, things we were supposed to coordinate on. When I'd follow up, he'd claim he forgot or that he thought I didn't mind. Once or twice I let it go. Then it became a pattern. One day I asked if he had signed Aria up for a piano recital without telling me. He said Alora had it handled and didn't think I needed to be there. I started documenting everything. Every missed communication. Every comment from the girls. Every post Alora made that showed my daughters on that perfect Instagram feed with captions like thankful for our beautiful complete family. Aria and Kenzie began saying things that made my skin crawl. That I left them. That Alora was their real mom now. That real moms don't leave. They were 9. They weren't making that up on their own. When Damien withheld the girls on one of my weekends, no notice, no explanation, I went to court. I brought the documentation, texts, calendar logs, screenshots of the blog where Alora posted about how to help kids move on from a broken home. The judge didn't need much convincing. He reaffirmed the custody agreement and gave Damien a formal warning. He said next time there'd be consequences. The girls were with me the following weekend, but it felt like I wasn't really there. They barely spoke, wouldn't hug me, wouldn't eat the breakfast they used to beg for. Aria asked if she could sleep with her real mom instead. Kenzie called me Talia when she asked for a glass of water. They'd never done that before. At a school open house, Alora introduced herself to the teacher as Aria and Kenzie's mom, not stepmother, not bonus mom, just mom. I corrected her once, politely. She gave me a smile that didn't touch her eyes and said, "Oh, I thought you weren't really in the picture anymore." Damien didn't say anything, just stood there looking at his phone. I kept showing up. Every pickup, every school event, every weekend, even when they treated me like a stranger. My therapist said the only way through it was to stay steady. So I did, even when it felt like banging on a locked door. Then a mutual friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in a while, tagged me in an Instagram story. I don't think she meant anything by it, probably just assumed I'd want to see the girls in the pictures, but I wasn't supposed to know they were there. It was a sneak peek of a family photo shoot, everyone dressed in white and beige, smiling by the lake. A caption written in gold script, "Our unbreakable bond." There were the girls, front and center, with Alora and Damien holding their hands. Alora was holding Kenzie like she was hers, like she gave birth to her. Damien had his arm around Aria, who was holding a sign that said love makes a family. I wasn't in a single frame. I hadn't even known it was happening. No one told me. No one asked. It was on my weekend. I checked the date. Damien had picked them up for a birthday party. That was what he said. A lie. I took a screenshot. Several, actually. I sent them to my lawyer. I had to breathe through my anger because I knew what would happen if I exploded. Damien would twist it into me being unstable. Alora would blog about it. I'd get another post titled "Co-parenting with narcissists." Probably with a stock photo of a screaming woman. I didn't scream. I didn't reply. I started planning. Because I had the court order. I had the legal custody agreement. I had dates, logs, evidence. And I had one more thing. I knew where the full photo shoot was happening next weekend. And this time I was going to show up. The same night I saw the photo shoot teaser, I called Damien. Straight to the point, I asked why I wasn't informed. Why the girls missed my weekend. Why they were in a public shoot I didn't approve. He barely let me finish before saying it was just a few pictures for our page, nothing serious, and not worth the fuss. I reminded him it was my custody weekend. He said I was making everything about legalities again and hung up before I said another word. So I texted Alora. I asked if she realized what they were doing violated the custody agreement. No reply. Just a read receipt that stayed there for hours. I followed up. She blocked me. 3 days later, the full photos dropped. On Instagram. On their blog. On her YouTube channel. On a post that had "Meet My Family" in the title, Alora wrote a long caption describing her journey to becoming the mother of 2 beautiful twin girls. Every picture had her in the center, holding my daughters, kissing their foreheads, holding hands. Damien barely appeared in the album. It was curated to look like Alora had raised them on her own. No mention of me. I printed every screenshot. I brought them to my lawyer that same week. She filed for an emergency mediation hearing the next morning. The violation was clear. Missed custody weekend. Unauthorized use of my children's images in a commercial capacity. And misrepresentation of legal guardianship. And misuse of their names. That weekend, the girls were dropped off. It was obvious they didn't want to be there. Aria walked in, dropped her overnight bag on the couch, and sat on her phone. Kenzie didn't even hug me. I tried to get them to help me make their favorite lasagna. They both said they weren't hungry. Aria said they only came because Dad said we had to. When I offered to call him, they refused. Said they didn't want to talk to him. I asked if they missed him. They shook their heads. Kenzie said, "We miss Mom." I paused and asked who she meant. She looked down at her sneakers and whispered, "Alora." They didn't join me for movie night. Didn't want to go for ice cream. They spent most of the evening in their room, lying in bed scrolling through Alora's page on the iPad. At one point, I heard Arya correcting Kenzie about how Alora curled their hair better than I ever did. I didn't say anything. I let them be. But later in the shower, I couldn't stop crying. I didn't let them see. On Monday, I told my lawyer everything that happened. She said what I already feared. This was starting to look like parental alienation. Slow but intentional. She told me to keep documenting and begin preparing for a full custody reevaluation. Then the school sent a flyer home. Picture day was coming up again, but not just a regular one. It was part of something new they were doing, Family Pride Week. Each student was to be photographed with their parents or guardians. It's a message of support for non-traditional families. The letter encouraged parents to participate. It even listed the names submitted by each household for coordination. Next to Arya and Kenzie's names, it said they'd be photographed with Alora Whitman and Damian Whitman. That wasn't just wrong, it was illegal. The girls still legally carry my last name. It was clear the school had accepted the name change form without verifying it through the proper legal channels. They still carry mine. Second, the school had no documentation authorizing Alora as their legal guardian. And third, I was the legal mother. That had not changed. There had been no motion to modify custody. No consent form. Nothing. I called the school the same afternoon, asked to speak with the family liaison officer, explained everything calmly. I asked them to update the records immediately and send me a copy of what they had on file. When I received the forms 2 days later, I saw the change was submitted under a parental request with Damian's signature. Alora's name was added in the slot that originally said mother. I went to the school the next morning, or in person, with a printout of the custody agreement and a copy of the emergency mediation request. I met with the principal. I showed them the court documents and asked them to immediately remove Alora's name from any official documents unless they received something signed by a judge. The principal was apologetic and said they would review everything with their legal team. I also requested that no pictures of the girls be published on the school site or bulletin without my permission moving forward. That same day, Damian emailed me. No apology, no explanation. Just a line saying, "Please stop causing issues with the school. You're making things harder for everyone." I didn't reply. Instead, I made a plan. Because the Family Pride Week photo campaign wasn't just happening at school, I found out from another parent that Alora had arranged for a second shoot, professional, just like the last one, happening on Saturday at the community garden downtown. She was apparently coordinating outfits again, matching pastels. She'd booked a photographer through her blog sponsor, another branding campaign. She didn't know I knew about it, but I had the receipts. I had the court order. I had the right to be there. And this time I was going to bring everything with me. Literally. Friday came fast. I had the court paperwork printed, highlighted, and stapled neatly with a copy of our custody agreement. I also had an email from the school confirming the shoot time, Friday at 3 p.m., that lined up exactly with my scheduled pickup, which was every other Friday at 3:15 p.m. They thought I wouldn't show. They were wrong. I called the school again that morning, asking who submitted the paperwork changing my daughter's last names to Alora's. The woman at the front desk hesitated, then said she had to check. 5 minutes later, she returned and said Damian had submitted the change. No legal paperwork. No signature from me. Just a parental request form with his name on it. I explained that no name change had ever been approved or even requested through the court. I faxed them the custody order again, this time with the legal names underlined. They agreed to flag the file and said they would pause anything involving public distribution of the photos until they got official clarification. I asked when the shoot would start. They said Alora had arranged it for 3 p.m. sharp in the school's garden area. There would be a photographer, props, and something about a family blog collaboration. I thanked them and didn't say another word. At 2:45, I was already at the school, sitting quietly outside the admin office with my folder in hand. No drama. No announcement. Just waiting. At 3 p.m. exactly, I watched Damian's car pull into the lot. He stepped out first, holding a bouquet of peonies. Alora got out next, in a fitted white dress and matching heels. She had a wide brim hat and pearl earrings. Then came the girls, Arya in a lavender dress, Kenzie in soft yellow. Their hair was curled. They each held tiny baskets of flowers. I stayed where I was until they walked into the garden area behind the school. Alora was fixing the girls' hair, Damian chatting with the photographer. The backdrop was already set up, white lace, a little wooden bench, and a sign hanging in the middle that said, "Forever starts now." I stood up, walked calmly to the garden, and stopped a few feet away from them. The school coordinator spotted me first and came over. I handed her the custody agreement, which was still fully in effect, and the recent email exchange confirming that today was my pickup day. I showed her the highlighted portion that verified I had shared legal custody and was recognized as the girl's legal mother under current court orders. I also pointed out that today was my scheduled pickup. It wasn't even up for debate. Damian noticed me then. His smile faded. Alora turned around, and the color drained from her face. She froze like someone had hit pause. Damian walked over, mumbled something about not making a scene. I didn't respond. I turned to the girls. They had stopped moving. Kenzie had her hand halfway up to fix her hair. Arya was holding the basket in front of her, like a shield. I stepped forward and greeted the staff, handed one of them the second copy of my folder, and said I'd be leaving with the girls as it was my court-ordered time. The photographer, who clearly had no idea what was going on, lowered his camera. He looked toward Alora, then Damian, then back at the school staff. I knelt down in front of the girls, careful not to startle them. I pulled out the schedule from my folder and held it out. "This paper shows when mommy gets to be with you, and today is one of those days." Kenzie looked at Alora, then back at me. Her eyes were wide and wet. Arya didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then she whispered, "But Dad said you left us." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't panic. I just said, "I never left. I've always been here, and I'll always be here." Kenzie started to cry. Arya stood frozen for another second, then dropped the basket. I held out my hands. They both took them. Alora stepped forward like she was going to stop us, but one of the school staff gently pulled her aside. Damien was still saying something under his breath, pacing in a small circle. I walked out with the girls holding my hands, past the bench, the lace backdrop, and the flower sign. The photographer stood silently with his camera lowered. Alora didn't move. Damien kept muttering, but didn't follow us. The girls and I got in my car, and I buckled them in like I always do. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I saw Damien standing there still holding the bouquet. Alora had picked up the sign and was trying to rehang it, alone. The next day, the photographer's website posted a reschedule announcement for the shoot, saying due to unexpected scheduling conflicts, the family photos would be delayed. I took a screenshot and added it to my folder. And that Monday, my lawyer filed for custody modification. The court date is set. 2 days after the school photo incident, I got a call from the front office asking me to attend a formal meeting. They said it was to clear up ongoing confusion about school records and family involvement. They also asked if Damien would be attending. I said if he was invited, he should be. I didn't ask questions. I just confirmed I'd be there. Friday morning, I walked into the school's conference room right on time. The school counselor was there, along with the assistant principal, a district representative from legal, and the family liaison. A few minutes later, Damien and Laura arrived. He looked tired. She came in full glam, heels, lipstick, and a matching leather-bound planner in hand like she was prepping for a magazine interview. Alora sat down and immediately started talking over the introductions. She talked about how chaotic things had gotten lately and how important it was to keep the girls in a stable, unified environment. She spoke like she had the final say. I didn't interrupt. I waited until everyone had settled, then calmly placed a folder on the table and slid it across. Inside were copies of the court order, custody schedule, visitation logs, and screenshots of the family blog entries. I pointed to the section that said both parents must be consulted on school-related decisions. I also showed the line about media exposure requiring joint consent. The school counselor looked down at the document and nodded slowly. The district legal rep took a photo of the first page and kept reading. Damien didn't look up once. He kept tapping his fingers on the table. Alora tried to steer the conversation away from the documents and back to what she called what's best for the girls. But then the assistant principal spoke up and said the school had a copy of a written statement Alora submitted earlier that semester, online, where she claimed I was no longer involved in the girls' lives. I asked if they could confirm the date that statement was given. They pulled it up, 3 weeks before the garden photo shoot. That same week, I had 3 documented messages trying to confirm pickup arrangements with Damien, none of which got a reply. I pulled out a second set of records, logs of denied visits, missed pickups, school functions I wasn't told about. I gave them printed screenshots from the photo shoot day and a calendar of my custody time, compared to when the girls were used in Alora's content. The school counselor hesitated, then said Aria and Kenzie had been making concerning comments. Things like my real mom lives far away, and we don't talk to her anymore. They had assumed something had changed legally. That's why the Family Pride Week form had gone through. Alora quickly spoke up and said she never told the girls that. The legal rep looked unimpressed. She asked if they were aware of the public content connected to the blog. That was when I told them I'd sent screenshots ahead of time, entries where Alora referred to biological contributors who walked away and praised stepmothers who stepped in. The legal rep pulled out her phone and checked the email I'd sent earlier. One blog post was titled, "Some parents choose to walk away, but love builds families." Another said, "Our girls are proof that motherhood is more than just biology." Both featured pictures of Aria and Kenzie. In one, Alora had tagged herself as mom of twins. The room went quiet. Damien finally looked up when the legal rep asked if they had spoken to any family lawyer about changing custody or legal guardian status. Neither of them answered. She reminded them that Alora had no legal rights regarding school matters, medical forms, or decision-making. Until a judge ruled otherwise, the school was not to take her input on anything beyond emergency contacts. The assistant principal added that all school systems would be updated to reflect the correct legal guardianship. They would also issue a notice to all teachers about parental involvement protocols moving forward. After the meeting, I headed toward pickup. The girls came out with their class. Aria held back, quiet like usual, but Kenzie ran ahead and hugged me. That hadn't happened in weeks. She didn't say much, but she held my hand the entire walk to the car. That night, after they went to sleep, I checked Alora's blog again. I wanted to make sure she hadn't taken things further. She had. A new post had gone up. The title read, "When Courts Fail Children." It was all there, photos of the garden shoot, cropped to remove my appearance. A long paragraph calling me obsessed with being in pictures and desperate to prove something. She said the girls were being pulled back into a toxic cycle by someone who refuses to let go. I archived the post and emailed it to my lawyer. Then I took screenshots of the tagged photos. One of them showed Aria holding a sign that said "Forever Family." The caption read, "You don't have to be born into love. Sometimes love finds you." I included those too. Right after Alora's blog post went up painting me as manipulative and obsessed with appearances, my lawyer filed a motion with the court. The motion requested a temporary order to restrict Alora from posting anything that referenced the girls or me, whether directly or indirectly on any public platform. The judge didn't take long to respond. By the next morning, the motion was accepted and set for hearing. The post disappeared from her blog within 12 hours of the motion being filed. It was gone from the homepage, scrubbed from the archive, and untagged from every photo. But not before it had been shared, saved, and screenshotted by plenty of people, including a parenting blogger I know through mutual circles. She emailed me 3 screenshots and a cached version of the full entry, just in case Alora tried to claim it never existed. That same day, I got a message from someone named Miranda on an old Facebook account I barely use. I almost ignored it, but something about the message preview stopped me. Miranda introduced herself as Alora's estranged sister. She said she had cut ties with Alora years ago but still followed her blog out of habit. She told me she hadn't realized the extent of what Alora had been doing until the school incident came out in the local PTA forums. She told me Alora had been calling herself a mother of twins abandoned by their biological mother for over a year in her influencer circles. According to Miranda, it wasn't just online. She'd said the same things at workshops, networking events, and a few panels she'd spoken at. Miranda sent me a link to an event website still hosting clips from one of those panels. In one clip, Alora stood on stage holding a microphone. She introduced herself as a full-time mother of two, then added, "They were left behind and I stepped up when no one else would." The room applauded. Her profile on that site listed her as a survivor of maternal absence and said she was raising twins in a loving, healed home. I downloaded everything. Videos, transcripts, the site's bio page, even the event flyers. I forwarded it all to my lawyer. She added it to our case file under parental interference and identity misrepresentation. That weekend, Aria and Kenzie were quieter than usual. On Sunday afternoon, Aria asked me if Alora was really their real mom. I asked what made her ask that, and she said they had Googled Alora's name after hearing something from kids at school. They saw blog posts, video clips, and pictures of Alora talking about her girls. Kenzie said one of her classmates told her it was sad that their real mom didn't want them. I didn't panic. I didn't deny anything. I pulled out an old box from my closet and sat with them on the living room floor. Inside were photo albums, thick ones. Each one filled with pictures from the time they were born to just before Damien and I divorced. I opened the first one and let them flip through it. They saw pictures of their first birthday, matching cupcakes smeared across their faces. Pictures of us at the zoo, at the beach, during bedtime stories, and one of them sleeping on my chest while I held a baby bottle and a pacifier in one hand. Dozens of moments Alora wasn't part of. Aria stared at one photo where she was riding on my back in a hiking trail. She didn't speak for a while. Then she asked, "Why didn't Dad tell us any of this?" Kenzie asked if I had left them because I was too sad. I told them the truth. I told them I never left. I told them there were people who didn't want me around, but I never stopped trying. I didn't name names. I didn't place blame. I just said, if you ever want to ask questions, I will always tell you the truth. They didn't say much after that, but they didn't walk away either. The next morning, while I was packing their backpacks, Aria asked if she could take one of the photo albums back to Damien's house. I asked which one, and she picked the one with the beach trip and bedtime stories. I said yes, but I also slipped a printed copy of the court order into the back sleeve, just in case anything happened to the album. That afternoon, my lawyer followed up with an update. The court date for the custody review was moved up due to the mounting evidence. She said that with Miranda's statement, the event footage, and the girls beginning to question the narrative, the case was building fast. Meanwhile, Alora's blog was put on temporary suspension by the hosting platform, likely in response to the court's motion. All her entries went offline. Her Instagram switched to private. The account bio was edited. Mom of twins was changed to just lifestyle creator. For once, the truth wasn't something I had to fight to prove. It was standing on its own. The morning after my lawyer sent out the cease and desist letters, I got confirmation that several platforms had already complied. One of them was an event management site where Alora had spoken on a panel about step-parenting through adversity. They removed her profile entirely. Another was a podcast that had posted an episode featuring Alora calling herself a single mother by circumstance. That episode was pulled down within hours. Later that day, someone from the podcast's media team sent me an anonymous email. They confirmed they'd received the cease and desist notice and would not be re-uploading the episode or using the twins' names again. That night, Alora's Instagram account went private. The bio changed again. First, it said just a girl sharing her journey. By morning, it was blank. Most of the posts featuring Aria and Kenzie were gone. The account lost a few thousand followers overnight. I didn't say anything. I didn't message her. I just forwarded screenshots of the changes to my lawyer, who logged everything into our file. On Wednesday afternoon, Damien showed up at my door. It was the middle of a workday. He had a white bakery box in one hand and looked like he hadn't slept. I opened the door halfway. He said he wanted to talk. I didn't invite him in, but I stepped outside with him. He handed me the box, cookies from the same bakery we used to take the girls to on Sundays. He said he was sorry. Said things had gotten out of hand. Said Alora meant well. I asked him straight out, why did he let her act like she was the only mother? Why did he sign forms at school without telling me? Why did he sit back while my daughters were told I left them? He said he didn't think it mattered. That Alora was just trying to be supportive, that he didn't think it would go this far. I told him it had gone far, that the girls were confused, that Aria cried asking why he never told her the truth, that Kenzie thought I left because I was too sad. I told him the damage was already done, and I had every word, every form, every blog post backed up. That was when he panicked. He said he never meant to lose custody. This was never supposed to turn into a fight. I said, then you shouldn't have played house at my expense. I asked him directly if he ever told the girls I abandoned them. He didn't answer. He just looked down at his shoes. I handed him a folder, thicker than the last one. It had copies of every court violation, screenshots of the name change request, transcripts from Alora's blog and podcast appearances, and the school documents he signed without me. I told him, this is what I'll be bringing to court, and the court won't just ask why you let this happen. They'll ask why you let your daughters believe their mother disappeared. He didn't say a word. He took the folder and walked back to his car. That weekend, for the first time in almost 2 months, he returned the girls exactly on time. No texts. No excuses. He pulled up to the curb, walked them to the door, and left without speaking. Aria gave me a hug without me asking. Kenzie walked into the kitchen and asked if we could bake instead of going out. She said she liked the real photos better, the ones where her hair wasn't curled and we were wearing pajamas. On Monday, my lawyer called with another update. Alora had fully complied with the court motion. Every public platform she was associated with had removed all references to the girls. Her speaking engagements were canceled. Her affiliate sponsorships dropped. The email she used for press inquiries was shut down. Then the letter came. My emergency request for sole legal custody had been approved for preliminary review. A hearing was scheduled in less than 3 weeks. The court agreed that the situation met the standard for an expedited review based on documented interference, misrepresentation, and emotional harm to the children. It didn't mean the custody order was changed, yet, but it meant the court was listening. The next step was presenting everything in court: calendars, logs, photos, screenshots, testimony, all of it. And this time, it wasn't just about missed weekends or unapproved photo shoots. It was about 2 little girls who had been told their mother vanished, when the truth was that she'd been fighting the whole time to stay in their lives. The morning of the hearing, I arrived at the courthouse 30 minutes early. My lawyer met me at the steps. She carried a binder we'd spent weeks building, color-coded, tabbed, backed up twice. Every visitation denial, every school form, every blog post, every podcast transcript, every message I had sent that was ignored. There were screenshots, videos, timelines. We weren't leaving anything to chance. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wooden benches, 2 flags, a judge's bench elevated just enough to feel serious. Damien sat across the room with his lawyer. His suit looked like it hadn't been worn in years, wrinkled at the sleeves and a little tight around the neck. Alora sat beside him. She wore a beige turtleneck and light makeup. Her eyes stayed on the floor. She didn't say a word to anyone. The judge came in, glanced over the docket, and then addressed the room. He stated that the emergency review had been granted because of ongoing custodial interference, emotional manipulation, and misrepresentation of parental authority. His tone didn't leave room for interpretation. My lawyer opened. She started with the custody agreement. She outlined the court-ordered terms Damien had violated: missed weekends, unnotified pickups, and school decisions made without my consent. She went step by step. Very calm, direct. Then she introduced the misuse of the girls' names and images. Alora's blog posts were shown on the court's projector. Screenshots of Alora calling herself their only real mother and describing me as biologically present but spiritually absent were displayed one by one. The judge stopped on that line. He looked directly at Damien and asked, "Did you object when this portrayal was published?" Damien looked stunned. He stumbled through an answer, said he didn't think it would go public. The judge cut in. "Negligence is not a defense. You had a legal duty and you failed it." Alora leaned forward, whispered to her lawyer, but didn't speak until the judge asked her one question directly. "Did you ever refer to yourself, in writing or in speech, as the only mother of these girls?" Her lawyer hesitated, but the judge told her to answer. Her voice cracked, but she said yes. Then came the school documentation. My lawyer brought up the form submitted to change the girl's last name. It was signed by Damien, with Alora's handwriting in the notes section. No authorization, no legal permission. Just fraudulent paperwork handed in during a school event I hadn't even known about. Damien's lawyer tried to say it wasn't meant to be deceptive, that it was a practical measure to prevent confusion at school. The judge leaned forward and said, "You're not confused about who their mother is, are you?" The room was quiet. Then my lawyer asked the court's permission for me to read a letter. It was from Aria. She had given it to me the week before, folded inside one of the photo albums she'd borrowed. The judge approved. I stood, opened the page, and read it out loud. "I'm sorry I believed bad things. I thought you didn't want us. But I remember you used to sing when I couldn't sleep. I want to remember more. I love you." No one moved. No one spoke. Damien wiped his eyes. Alora turned her face away. Her shoulders were shaking, but no one reached to console her. The judge called a recess. When we returned, he delivered the ruling. I was granted primary legal and physical custody. Damien was given limited visitation, every other weekend, supervised for 6 months. After that, the court would reassess. Alora was barred from making any school decisions, medical appointments, or legal actions involving the girls. She was also forbidden from publishing or posting any content involving them on any platform, personal or professional. The judge concluded by saying the girls had a right to their real history, not a version rewritten for clicks or appearances. A family, he said, is not a brand. As we left the courthouse, there were no reporters, no staged hugs, no photographer waiting to catch the moment. Just me, holding 2 hands that never should have been pulled away from mine in the first place. No captions, no filters. Just a mother and her daughters, walking out into the sun, free from someone else's story.